Today we're here to talk about transportation. And here in Central Florida, in this region that we call home, we really have the best of everything. Many of us love our international airport, one of the best airports in the world. And here, had Jacob had his way and delayed yesterday's launch, we would have seen over our shoulder a launch from the spaceport. And of course, here we are at Port Canaveral, one of the best seaports in the world. We also enjoy a pretty good transportation system. Many of us took the 408, the 417, and I-4 to get here today to this wonderful setting. And 408 and the 417 recently have undergone some significant changes. And in the next couple of years, we're going to see a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure update to I-4. It's going to grow. And it's growing because our community is also growing. People continue to come to Central Florida. Growth and the impact that it has on our community. Now, we don't have a panel of experts today to talk about transportation. You will get your experts coming to see you when you're in Tallahassee, talking about construction, talking about those needs. But today, we want to talk about our family of communities. We want to make that connection to the community that we serve. So we have some representatives that help us talk with our community. We can't have every representative here from our community because we only have 20 minutes of conversation. But we have some folks that can make that connection, that bridge, if you will, between our transportation needs and the needs of our community. Now, the only expert that we have on our panel is Harry Barley, Executive Director of MetroPlan Orlando. And he's going to give us some of the facts and some of the data. We'll come back to Harry in just a little bit. But we also have representing Seniors First, Marsha Lorenz, President of Seniors First, making sure that our seniors maintain their dignity and independence in our metropolitan area. Then we have John Gill, President of Quest, Inc. And John is not new to Quest, but new in his role now as President of Quest, making sure that those individuals, our citizens with developmental disabilities, are able to fulfill their dreams. Their dreams of having work, education, and an ability to live on their own. Very important for transportation. And then my good friend, Mark Brewer, who's President of the Community Foundation of Central Florida, and also about to be appointed officially at some point chairman of myregion.org. And so I turn to Mark first to help us frame this conversation of why we don't have industry experts of transportation, but instead members that represent our community. And Mark, I ask you as a member of our community, someone who's an expert in social capital, to help us make that connection, why it's important to have this conversation with people of the community as we face and talk to members of our delegation.
Well, I think that's a great question, Jose. I think we talk about transportation a lot as infrastructure. We talk about it as systems. We think about transportation as buses and trains and highway miles and concrete. But one of the things we know at the Community Foundation through our long-term investment in healthcare, education, social services, is that at the core of almost all of these issues is transportation, from the human side of transportation. So in studies since 2005 that we funded to look at costs for delivering everything from indigent healthcare services to job training services, the thing that always gets in the way of these initiatives is not the ability to open clinics or to provide the services, it's the ability for people to get to the services as they're put together. We're in the market with partners right now across the region in a value study to ask the people of Central Florida how they feel about transportation and what their willingness is to look at it as a system and be willing to pay for it. And I think we're going to get some surprises because, Jose, at the end of the day, this is really about people getting around a growing region, and as there are more people and more places to go, we need to find ways to get people to where they need to be, not just from an economic standpoint, but from a quality of life standpoint.
Thank you, Mark. So, Marsha, talking about people getting to places, you represent a significant amount of individuals, senior citizens, who want to have independence and have dignity. Why is transportation important to that segment of the population?
It's actually exactly what you just said in terms of independence and dignity. If I had to sum it up in a nutshell, if you wanted to take a soundbite from today, I mean, basically it would be mobility is critical to staying independent and staying in the community. And given the choice, as we age in place, and we are doing that, I know it's a horrible thing to bring up, we don't always want to be faced with that, but when we think about boomers, turning 65. It's a huge number, and it's multiplying on a daily basis. 8,000 a day are turning 65. So we've got to come up with solutions that are going to address the needs of this population. And in order for them to stay independent, stay in their own homes, stay in the community, have that quality of life, make those choices, we have to have a transportation system that is flexible, that meets their needs. They've got to be able to access it. It's got to be adaptable. It's got to work nights, weekends, evenings, all of those things, get them to shopping centers, get them to doctor's appointments, all the things that, you know, some of us take for granted because we are able to drive, but if you're not able to drive, it becomes a huge burden and you are dependent on other people to get those things done for you. So it's really critically important that when we are designing a system that it is senior friendly.
John, what about you with the folks that you represent on Quest, folks who have disabilities and want really to fulfill the dream? They want to be independent. They want to work. They want to go to our educational systems. Talk about how you make that connection with the folks that you represent and transportation for members of our delegation.
Thanks, Jose. It's an economic issue for us, is how we kind of look at it. My company, Quest, we take care of about 1,100 people on a daily basis, and they have a variety of developmental disabilities. And Quest is we're really an employment company and a healthcare company, because one of our goals is to help move people with developmental disabilities from dependence to independence. And while we have a network of adult day training centers where we're giving people skills, the ultimate goal is to move them through those facilities and into work in the community. And because of the cognitive issues that a lot of our community have and are challenged with, the best way, they're unable to drive is the kind of the foundation. So transportation networks are required for them to be able to get a job, for them to be able to experience recreation, and all the things that many of us that are typically equipped are able to do on a daily basis. So it's, from our perspective, it's an economic issue, because without those systems, networks, and services, then we are unable to get jobs in the community for the people that we serve.
Now, John, when we spoke earlier, you threw out a percentage of folks, the people that you serve that can't drive. What was that percent? Do you recall?
That percentage is 100%.
100%. Yeah. So very important then to
Yeah.
make sure we have proper transportation.
It's huge. And it's huge. One thing I'd like to throw out there is we have a program with one of our partners, SeaWorld. Right now there are 16 individuals in this. It's called Follow Along Employment. So those individuals work at SeaWorld, and we have a professional that goes around and makes sure that they can do the work, but also that the managers can manage these individuals. But over the last 20 years, we have had what I call 100 alumni that have gone through this program that still work at SeaWorld today. Some of them have worked there for 20 years, and these individuals have bought homes, they've bought condos, they contribute to our society because they pay property taxes and payroll taxes and things of that nature. So we're moving them off of government assistance and into contributing members of society. And so that's huge, and we feel that transportation is a small investment to get that big return.
Right, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one other piece of transportation. We're wearing our little buttons, and for Sunrail, we're so proud to champion Sunrail, which is part of your needs of making sure that the folks that you represent, the citizens that you represent, also get from their homes to workplaces and entertainment.
Absolutely.
So Harry, you've been working on MetroPlan for some time now. You've been an expert in transportation, our only expert on our panel today, to help connect the dots between getting to A and getting to B. So as you hear from John and Marcia and Mark, how does this resonate with your planning that you've already put before the delegation and the planning that you want to do? How can you embrace this as we talk to our members of the delegation for the planning that MetroPlan does?
Well, good afternoon, and everyone in this room today can speak to the importance of having a transportation system that works, and I'm very pleased to have 3 community leaders here who have already addressed that. The truth is that the members of our legislative delegation understand the importance of this. You're all customers of the system, your constituents depend on the system, and many of you have businesses that depend on the system. But Jose, you mentioned getting from A to B. It's actually bigger than that. Transportation, history shows us, is economic development. Think back to John Walsh's words a little while ago in the spectacular setting here. Transportation is economic development. It has always been true and will continue to be true in the future. Transportation is also the environment. And transportation is also public safety. And transportation is about having the personal freedom to go where you want to go, when you need to go, as John and Marcia spoke to. And all this comes together about the quality of life that we enjoy here in Central Florida. Without transportation, that makes it extremely difficult. We are very fortunate that the members of our legislative delegation get it, and we want to say thank you for the help that you have been over the years in getting us to where we are today. This is a really exciting time for us in the transportation industry here in Central Florida, and I need to tell you, my colleagues throughout the state are envious. When you think of what we've got going on, I'm just going to touch on some of the higher profile projects. We've got the Wekiva Parkway under construction, completing our beltway around the Orlando metropolitan area. So as I mentioned, we've got Sunrail Phase 1 under construction from the DeBarry Station in Volusia County south to the Sand Lake Road Station in Orange County, with operations scheduled to begin next spring. Immediately after that, there'll be Sunrail Phase 2 to the north to DeLand and to the south in Point Siena in Osceola County. The expansion of the limo system in downtown Orlando is under construction and will be completed by the time Sunrail Phase 1 opens. There's the rebuilding of I-4 from Kirkman Road to State Road 434, a little north of 434 in Seminole County, introducing managed lanes and completely rebuilding just about all the interchanges along that route. This is going to improve safety as well as provide a new level of mobility in the region. Plans are moving ahead for the Intermodal Center at Orlando International Airport, a critical transportation hub that will serve all aboard Florida. We've got the studies underway on how to get Sunrail over to the airport, as well as another form of premium transit service connecting the Orange County Convention Center with the airport and with Medical City. And the design-build work is underway on the Point Siena Parkway in Osceola County. This will be the first component of the Osceola County Expressway system. And obviously there are hundreds of smaller projects throughout the region that we don't have time to go into detail on today, but there is a lot happening. And this just didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of time, a lot of work, and a lot of effort on the part of many people who are in this room today, and now we get to enjoy the results. But on top of all of this, there is still more to be done. So let's celebrate the success, but let's be mindful that as the region continues to grow and continues to thrive, we need to do even more in transportation. And that begins with good planning. The region's MPOs are currently in the process of updating the long-range transportation plans, and that's where this all tends to begin. And at the same time, new partnerships are being formed throughout the region to put more emphasis on implementing those plans in addition to just coming up with good ideas. We're hopeful that we can count on the delegation to be strong partners in this effort. Tomorrow at the MetroPlan Orlando board meeting, our board is expected to approve legislative priorities for the 2014 session in Tallahassee. That will include a number of projects, including things like the Coast to Coast Trail, an exciting opportunity for us here in Central Florida to join hands with our friends in the Tampa Bay area and bring about a first in the state of Florida. We'll also have some safety initiatives and, of course, some funding initiatives, and we'll be conveying those to you by the end of next week. Also, I wanted to be sure that everybody in our delegation is aware of something called the Central Florida MPO Alliance. This is where we bring together 6 MPOs that serve the entire Central Florida area, places that you all represent. It's the Ocala-Marion County MPO, the Volusia TPO, the Lake Sumter TPO, MetroPlan Orlando, and we serve Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, the Space Coast TPO here in Brevard County, as well as the Polk TPO, our neighbors to the south. And this is where we tackle issues of truly regional scale, and it's been a wonderful collaborative effort. This group will be approving legislative priorities in January, and we'll be conveying those to you and asking for your help at that time. So on behalf of the region's transportation industry, many of whom are represented today, I want to thank the delegation for your support and let you know that we're looking forward to working with you in the upcoming session. It's an exciting time.
Thank you for that wonderful update. So John and Marcia, if you were able to think 5 years down the road, after you heard some of the updates and some of the information that Harry projected, basic case scenario, what transportation system do we need to have in place to make sure that our community is better served based on the community that you represent, seniors and with a disability challenge?
I mean, on the senior side, I would say it just needs to be accessible, it needs to be flexible, and to be user-friendly, if I had to sum it up in those 3 statements. So it needs to meet the seniors that are isolated, that are out in areas that can't get into the city or aren't close to the city so that they're not isolated, they're not depressed, they're not left, alone, and they have that choice and that independence.
John?
Yeah, I would echo what Marcia said, but I would also add, when I think of our population, we need that last mile. That's what's going to be critical for us. The circulators, the last mile, those things that get you from the station to work or that get you to, recreation or wherever it is you're going. It's important for us because not only do we take care of 1,100 people, we've got 700 employees, and we skew towards lower income individuals that work with us. And so for us, it's a holistic thing, and it's completing those kind of final steps that I think that will have the biggest payoff for organizations like us.
Right. So Mark, coming back to you, hearing what Harry had to say and our colleagues John and Marcia, help us kind of wrap this back together with the priorities that we have with our region and the impact that this has. How do you see this future playing out in terms of transportation and how we connect back to social capital in our communities?
Well, I want to join Harry in thanking the delegation for all the work you've done to make the things that are happening happen now. I think for all of us, this is a distinct leadership challenge as we move ahead to the future. It's not a consumer issue. We spent way too long, I believe, thinking of transportation and wondering whether consumers want it, whether they'll use it, whether it's the right or wrong thing to do. As 3.5 or 3.9 million people become 7 million people over the next 30 years, we're now at a unique time and place in which transportation as a system will define not only economic development, but also the quality of life for the people who live in this region. And today, even if you can identify some place in the region where you think people don't need to get from where they are to someplace else in the region, that won't be the case next week, next month, or next year. So we have a defined opportunity to begin to think about turning people into the economy of the future by giving them access and opportunity to participate in the economic system. And I think that's our challenge, Jose.
Yeah, and also our challenge, Harry, is that there's always something else happening. So eventually, at what point do we say we have a great transportation system? Well, will we ever be in a place that we say I-4 is perfect, that our roads are perfect, that everything interconnecting our modal system are perfect?
We can dream, can't we?
Absolutely. We are in a kind of Metro Orlando where dreams come true.
It tends to be a catch-up game, but with the improvements that are happening, we can all be very, very proud of that.
Right.
But the future is going to be different than the past. And I can tell you on the part of our board, mostly elected officials, and the same is true for MPO boards throughout the state, they're faced with some tough decisions and making investment decisions on how to implement those plans. But clearly the direction is moving away from the traditional highway projects and the traditional widening projects. A lot of that is meeting with a great deal of resistance in communities that don't want to see that 4-lane road go to a 6-lane road or a 6-lane road go to an 8-lane road. So a lot more emphasis is being put on transit. We see some of the early parts of that already in the program. A lot more emphasis is being put on pedestrian facilities, bicycle facilities, safety improvements, and another whole field of science where we've seen some tremendous success is with what we call management and operations. This is using technology to make better use of the capacity that's out there. In fact, one of the most popular programs we have is we spend $2 million a year doing signal retimings in the corridors just to get the traffic signals upgraded to work more efficiently. Does a great way of moving more cars through that same footprint. So technology is going to help us to some extent, but it's probably always going to be a catch-up game.
So Mark, let's help our delegation with some of that feedback, because there's that pushback occasionally, as Harry pointed out, of those citizens who say they don't want the road coming through the neighborhood or they want to pay extra tolls. How can we help our delegation answer that call from those citizens that this is actually the right thing to do and move transportation forward as part of our regional priority?
Well, I think that's a challenge, not just for elected officials, but for all of us in community leadership. At this point in time, I think leadership, as it relates to transportation, is about thinking regionally, as we all do on a daily basis, but about figuring out the high impact we're going to have in being able to move people in the future. And so that consumer mentality that's out there, some people believe that, why would I spend the money now when I may not be here when it's built, or how am I sure people are going to use the transportation we're building? All that does is roll that ball down the hill even further and make it more difficult to get to a solution. So the strategic side of it is thinking regionally about how we move people, but more importantly, it's about the safety and security of people who may not have a choice, as you've heard from this side of the table, and about those who are looking to build businesses and to build this into a community in which we have access to moving people more efficiently for economic development.
Great. Well, thank you, Marcia, for the work that you do, for being on this panel. John, Mark, and Harry. And it was my pleasure serving as traffic cop for this conversation on regional transportation. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the delegation, for your sweet attention today. We're grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.